we haven't talked about COVID-19 for a full year. We really started in early March of last year was the first episode really about that. And we kind of knew very quickly that concerts were just going, bye-bye, see you, goodbye, no more. We don't like the concerts, people. We don't because COVID-19 was just handled so poorly, and a couple of states have done a couple. We covered a lot on Audioface last year. The different experiments with them. Some places had
the
testing.
You have
bubbles.
the bubbles shit, which just gave me extreme anxiety of looking at it. Everybody suffocating in a bubble together, and I forget what band it was, like jumping around and shit. I'm like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, Fauci.
I like to say it's the Flaming Lips, but
yeah, I think it was the Flaming Lips, something like that. But Fauci said that concerts can return after 70% of the population is vaccinated sometime in the fall. So that's kind of Fauci's prediction about vaccinations, 70%. We have a new administration entering in, so I don't know if that's going to help or find a neoliberal way to hurt.
Yeah, right. I think fall is a decent timeline. I'm still thinking like late fall, early winter for me to like going back to concert venues, to like sporting arenas and other stuff, like resuming more like 85% of your normal daily life. That's what I'm thinking about, is about that timeline. I'm hopeful, unless more shit comes out, but you never know.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see because like the 1975 canceled all of their shows in 2021. Like they said, okay, it's just not happening. We would like to, but for the safety of everybody and of our fans, of everybody involved, the touring and all that jazz, it's not feasible. So for a band of that caliber, and Maddie's like, okay, I know, I have an ego, I love being on stage, but we can't do this right now. It's going to be almost impossible.
Yeah,
unless you see the scope of it.
And right now we are really experiencing the consequences of what happens when you don't handle COVID-19 in a reasonable way. The lockdowns had to be overstated and overdone because the disease is still running rampant and under-controlled in our population. And so just as we have restaurants and small businesses that are closing for good, shuttering because they couldn't withstand the 3 months of closures, let alone the now year-long of closures, much the same thing is happening in music with musicians. So they're struggling not being able to tour. We talked about how touring is the majority of how artists make their revenue now. And this is hurting them. That's happening for a prolonged thing. So the fact this is going to end up being like a year and a half probably for a lot of artists. The only silver lining coming out of this is that the touring season that's going to come out of this is going to be awesome. I'm going to be loving to be going to some of those festivals. We're going to be backpacking to some of those.
The silver lining is going to be a lot of people are going to be going to festivals. Like your shit's going to be sold out. I've heard of like people and stuff like on Twitter, because sometimes I use Twitter. You never know, at SWs or as SWs or as you never know.
Gang.
That people are like, I just want to go to some obscure shit. Just like some random bands, I'm like, all right, go see Dive or someone. Like, just go see Dayglow. Just speaking of him, go see random indie bands or these bands who really need your help and stuff. And that. But speaking of,
hold on. It's a known fact that Sean doesn't like to go out. But like, I one of the things I miss about going out is like going to like small bars and things that like have jazz concerts and like different things like that, almost like a cheese board, but at night. Like, I like those things. Those
I
are really
love those
cool.
things where you're just chilling, you have a brewski in hand, and there's like some sick musicians playing that you've never heard of before. Like my favorite thing was December 2019 when I went to 1975 concert. I went to a speakeasy in San Diego, and they had this awesome band that was playing for like 2.5, 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool, this is just shit you haven't been able to do for nearly 2 years, or a year and a half now.
Yeah, I miss shit like that.
Crazy.
And I
cannot wait for that shit.
Exactly. So moving on, sorry to interrupt you.
Oh yeah, moving on, fuck England. So speaking of like the touring stuff and how like struggling artists need all this stuff. So the whole Brexit thing of like, I'm not going to go on a political tangent because that's not the show for it. But anyways.
And like the whole Brexit idea basically kind of started, quote unquote, in 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
I mean, like the idea started as an open term, but the proceedings began in 2016, essentially.
Yes.
So it's been 4 years coming, and we have this now.
And this is one of the big repercussions. So musicians like UK musicians or stuff that wanted to travel abroad. Normally, if you're part of the EU, you just travel and you don't have any issues with customs and borders because just the EU passport goes all around.
Yeah, if you're an American just like going over a state, it's barely anything.
Yeah, it's like that, or it's like, or if you're going up to Canada or to Mexico, you don't even need a passport. You just need a passport card for that. It's something. It's like similar to that regard for those of you.
That's a better analogy.
Yeah, for those of you who are not European, but because of Brexit, they don't have EU passports, so they